Imagine two countries. One prints a currency the entire world depends on. The other, it's been kicked out of the global banking system. One has a GDP larger than the next three economies combined. The other's entire economy is smaller than Texas. Yet every headline makes them seem like equals battling for global supremacy. So what's the truth? Is Russia actually an economic rival to the United States, or have we all been fooled by military might and political theater? The numbers might shock you. Let's start with the basics. The United States has a GDP of approximately $27 trillion. Russia's about $2 trillion. That's not a competition, that's a massacre. To put this in perspective, the US economy is roughly 13 times larger than Russia's. California alone, just one state, has an economy larger than Russia's entire nation. But GDP isn't everything. What about growth? Russia's economy has been stagnant, growing at barely 1–2% annually even before recent sanctions. Meanwhile, the US consistently grows at 2–3%, and that's on a base 13 times larger. It's like comparing a sports car accelerating from 200 mph to a bicycle struggling uphill. Here's where it gets interesting. The United States has the world's most diversified economy. Tech giants like Apple, Google, Microsoft, financial powerhouses on Wall Street. Hollywood dominates global entertainment. American universities educate the world's elite. The US leads in pharmaceuticals, aerospace, and innovation. Russia, it's essentially a gas station with nuclear weapons. Over 60% of Russia's exports are oil and gas. They're incredibly dependent on a single sector, which makes them vulnerable to price swings and sanctions. When oil prices drop, Russia's economy crashes. The US economy barely blinks. Innovation tells the story too. The US spends over $700 billion annually on research and development. Russia, around $40 billion. American companies dominate the global tech landscape. Name one Russian tech company with global reach. I'll wait. But here's where American economic power becomes truly untouchable: the dollar. Roughly 60% of global foreign exchange reserves are held in US dollars. International trade, mostly conducted in dollars. This gives America a superpower that Russia can only dream of: the ability to weaponize finance. When the US froze Russian assets and cut Russian banks from SWIFT after the Ukraine invasion, it demonstrated something terrifying. America can essentially exile you from the global economy. The ruble collapsed. Russian citizens lined up at ATMs. Oligarchs watched their yachts get seized. Russia tried launching its own payment systems and pushing for de-dollarization. The result? Minimal. The world economy runs on dollars, and that's not changing anytime soon. The ruble, meanwhile, is what economists politely call volatile and what everyone else calls unreliable. Let's talk about what this means for actual people. The average American has a GDP per capita of around $76,000. For Russians, about $13,000. The median American is nearly 6 times wealthier than the median Russian. Life expectancy in the US is around 77 years. In Russia, just 73, and for men, it's a shocking 68 years. The US has problems, absolutely, but Russian living standards tell a story of economic weakness masked by military strength. Russian infrastructure is crumbling. Outside Moscow and St. Petersburg, much of the country looks frozen in time. Meanwhile, American innovation continues to reshape the global economy. One country is building the future. The other is desperately clinging to oil revenue and Cold War nostalgia. So here's the bottom line. Economically, this isn't even close. The USA doesn't just lead Russia, it laps it multiple times. Russia has nuclear weapons and a permanent UN Security Council seat, which gives it political and military relevance. But economically, it's a regional power pretending to be a superpower. The real question isn't whether Russia can compete with the US economically. It can't and won't. The question is whether Russia can leverage its energy resources and geopolitical position to punch above its economic weight. So far, the answer is yes, but at enormous cost to its own people and long-term prospects. The battle for economic supremacy between the US and Russia It was over before it started. The only reason we're still talking about it is because military power and propaganda can create the illusion of parity where none exist.
So before you believe the headlines and the hype, remember this. Real power isn't about noise or nukes. It's about economic control. If this made sense to you, like the video and subscribe for more.